Yeah, question over here.
Could you tell us how you feel and felt at the time about the music in Re-Animator?
How did you get away with that?
Well, I have to say, it's actually it's Richard Band, who's Charlie Band's brother.
Oh, right.
And you know, I told Richard when we were working, you know, he said, "What kind of movie music or what kind of music do you want?" And I said, "You know, something really driving." I said, and I used the Psycho, you know, music as an example. And he came in with this, and I said, "Is this a little close?" You know? And he said, "Stuart, it's an homage." It's an homage. We're going to, and he wanted to put, I have to say, that he wanted to put a little credit at the end of the film that said, "with apologies to Bernard Herrmann," and somehow that got left out. And so poor Richard has been taking shit for years.
It's a good soundtrack.
It is very cool. And I think the thing about Richard's music is that he lets you know that it's okay to laugh. You know, that there's a playfulness about the music in this movie that I think is really wonderful. It's not this typical horror movie, boom, 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 boom. You know, there's some life to it, which is great. Yes?
Yeah, I think this movie really works because it's exactly what you said. There's a playfulness to it, but it's also really disturbing.
Thank you.
It's kind of like about, I mean, I find it like about kind of old men that are really obsessed with, you know, youth and youngness and everything, and it's an art film, but do you think that there's any room for, like, serious critique around the horror genre, or do you think it's...
Do I think there's serious critique around the horror genre? Absolutely. You know, I think one of the things about horror movies is that they deal with topics that everyone else is afraid to deal with, and that horror movies are able to deal with things in a way. I mean, first of all, most horror films are about death, right? Which is the topic no one wants to talk about. And that we think about it all the time, but we're always afraid to really discuss it with each other. And horror movies give us a way of kind of expressing that. You know, but horror movies also deal with all kinds of very complex ideas, and usually very disturbing ones. You know, during the 80s, I think there was one movie, or maybe two, about AIDS that were made. But there were about 100 horror movies that were really about AIDS. And so it was a way for us to take the fear that we have and to put it on the screen. You know, the movies that they call torture porn now, which is a term that I hate, by the way, are about what was going on during the Bush administration. You know, we were torturing, you know, probably still are, people, you know, every day. We were reading about it in the newspaper, we were seeing pictures of these terrible things that were going on. And so it was an idea that was, you know, people didn't want to talk about it, but the horror movies did. So I think horror movies are
underrated.
In a lot of ways, I think that they are an opportunity for us to deal with very complex and as you said, disturbing ideas.
Are you happy with the state of modern horror films?
I am. One of the things that I think is so great about horror films these days is that you're getting them from all over the world. You know, it used to be that, you know, horror films were mainly an American thing, but now then it was the Asian horror films, and now there are French horror films, and there are movies from Scandinavia, and the Serbian horror films that are showing up now are like, holy shit. So it's like, you know, it's like every culture now are making these films, and you know, it's in a way it's fantastic because every culture has different things scare each of us in different places and so on. So it's a way of kind of understanding each other.
Well, remakes are very popular now. Is Re-Animator up for?
I don't think Re-Animator is going to get remade.
Good.
There may be a Re-Animator project coming up.
Well,
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, I'm tired of seeing these remakes, quite honestly, because I feel like the people who are making them didn't really want to make these movies. You know, the thing about the old movies like Nightmare on Elm Street or, you know, Texas Chainsaw was that the people who made those movies made them because they really had a passion and they wanted to express something. And now it's just basically being done for the money. And so, yeah, so it's like, there's no real reason to make those movies. Yeah.
Speaking of Bush, I interviewed a couple years ago via email, and you were rumored to make a sequel called House of Re-Animator with William Macy as the president who gets reanimated, Barbara Crampton as the first lady, and Jeffrey Combs gets called in. And I remember at the time you said, well, that it kind of lost its steam because with Bush actually getting the White House, it wouldn't have the same resonance. But I was thinking, because the Republicans retook the House, it's bad for me, but it's good for horror movies. Maybe make it the Speaker of the House, like John Boehner, a zombie. So I mean,
this looks like a job for Herbert West. I'm with you. I'm kind of agreeing with you. Yeah.
Is Jeffrey ready to don the glasses?
Jeffrey would frame me. I mean, Jeffrey's never stopped being Herbert West.
There's also rumors about Re-Animator, the musical.
Yeah. Yeah, working on a musical version of Re-Animator right now, which I'm hoping will be up on its feet.
We did a theatrical play version here
Did
in
you?
San Francisco.
That's from. Oh, cool.
A combo of Bride and Re-Animator.
Well, the thing about Lovecraft, and this is for all of you filmmakers out there, is that he's public domain. Every single Lovecraft story is available to you to adapt into a film. And the more the merrier, I say.
Have you heard of this big budget?
Yeah, I'm really happy about
the big budget.
that Guillermo del Toro's talking about doing At the Mountains of Madness, which can't wait to see that one.
I was curious about it. I was wondering if you could tell us, quite what From Beyond was based on, and like what made you make the choices in the adaptation? Like why did you set it in 1985 instead of 1920?
Well, here, I'm glad you brought that up because I get a lot of, it's funny because there's a Lovecraft festival that's in Portland, and every year I go, whenever I go there, yeah, they're kind of critical about the fact that these movies are set in the present day, and the ones that I make, and they're not period because Lovecraft wrote them in the 1920s and 30s, and my feeling is that there's no reason to set them in the past because they're just as vital and vibrant and far out as they were when he wrote them. And that, to put it in the past distances them from us. That Lovecraft hasn't aged. Lovecraft is still way ahead of us, actually. And unless there's a reason to set something in the past, I don't think you should do it. I think it should be about what's happening right now. And Lovecraft, his ideas are so imaginative that they are about right now. We haven't gotten to them yet, actually.
Something I've been interested in your Lovecraft adaptations is that he didn't write women.
Yeah.
And I think you not only write women in, but fully flesh them out and make them real characters. And Barbara Crampton in From Beyond steals the movie.
Yeah, it's really true. I mean, the thing you'll see when you watch From Beyond is that the characters, Barbara and Jeffrey, it's like a role reversal. Barbara is the mad scientist in From Beyond, and Jeffrey's kind of the victim.
Yeah.
And it's really, they kind of switched roles. But it is true that Lovecraft, what's weird about Lovecraft is he did not write women characters, but almost all of his stories are about weird sex acts, between,
frustrated
creatures from other dimensions and women, or from creatures from under the sea and women, or whatever. There's even one, I think, that it's called Arthur German, which is about a guy who discovers that his great-grandmother was a gorilla. So, all of Lovecraft has to do with these bizarre sex acts. But there are very few, I think there's only a couple of women characters in the stories.
Where's Miskatonic?
Where is Miskatonic? Well, Miskatonic is a university that Lovecraft invented. He invented this whole town called Arkham, Massachusetts, and Miskatonic is the university there. I think a lot of people say it's patterned after Brown University, in Providence, Rhode Island.
Which is where Lovecraft was
Which is
from.
where Lovecraft, yeah, grew. He lived in Rhode Island, Providence, his whole life. So some people say the Necronomicon is in the library at Brown University.
So Barbara Crampton's reaction to the oral sex scenes.
She, it was funny. I have to tell you that originally we had cast another actress in that role, who like backed out like about a week before we were supposed to start shooting, and said that I just can't do this. And Barbara, I think, realized that this is the scene that people are going to be talking about forever. And when I asked her why she decided to do it, she said, hey, no guts, no glory. God bless her.
Is she still working much?
Barbara, is kind of retired. There was a celebration because this is the 25th anniversary of Re-Animator, and she came to it, and she looks absolutely gorgeous. And but she's got a couple of kids now and has been spending most of her time with them.
What inspired you as a youngster to other films? Like, were you always knew as a child you wanted to do film, or was it later?
I always loved movies. I think the very first movie I ever saw was The Greatest Show on Earth, which is a movie about circuses that Cecil B. DeMille did. And I read one somewhere that it was the movie that inspired Spielberg to start making movies, and my reaction to that movie was a little different. It made me want to be a clown. And some say I've succeeded. So.
Was your theater work horror related, or?
We did do horror on stage, and I know that there's some of the guys here from the Grand Guignol Theater tonight, and I love that kind of theater. The stuff. I always believe that the stuff that you can do in movies, you can do everything in a movie that you can do in a movie on stage, and in a way it's better because it's happening right before your very eyes. If you're in the same room, you're getting splattered with blood.
It's more difficult.
Yeah. And so we did a play about Poe. Actually, we did a science fiction trilogy called Warp. We did all kinds of weird.
The Neil Adams artwork. Oh, that was awesome.
But I think we got a long evening ahead of us here, so thank you all so much, and hopefully we can talk about
I guess now we're going to move into the lobby. Okay, so I guess now Stuart's not going to be here after the next film, so he's going to be in the lobby if you want to go and talk to him.
Let's hear it for Stuart Gordon.
Yes. So, in the meantime, we could open up a haunted house if anybody wants to go check out the haunted house now.
Yeah.
Let's
do
see.
like a 20-minute intermission where you could go through the haunted house. It won't take long.
So let's say
go to the lobby.
9:22. At about 9:40, we'll be starting From Beyond. That sound good?
Yeah.
Everybody?
Great.
Let's do this. All right.
Good to me.